Welcome to the Coachzing Show, helping you work less, earn more, and reach more people through creative content marketing. Join the Coach Zingers community, where the world's best coaches, therapists, authors, and speakers come together to discover the latest trends, forge powerful joint ventures, and grow their business together. Go to coachzing.com/community to join. And now, here's your host, Doug Foresta.
Hello and welcome back to the Coachzing Show. This is your host, Doug Foresta. This is a show we help you, coaches, therapists, speakers, and authors to work less, earn more, and help more people through creative content marketing. And my guest today is Gillian Mandich. We're very excited about this episode. I know you'll get a lot out of it, so stay tuned. I want to remind you that if you would like a transcript of this episode or any episode, the way to get that is to go ahead and visit coachzing.com/community. That's coachzing.com/community. And you can sign up to be a Coach Zinger, and you'll get a transcript of this episode and every episode. So let me say a little bit about Gillian and bring her right on. Gillian Mandich is currently completing her doctoral studies at Western University in Health and Rehabilitation Science, and her research examines health promotion, specifically physical activity, childhood obesity, nutrition, sustainable happiness, and diabetes. Prior to her PhD studies, she worked in public health at the Middlesex-London Health Unit and received her master's degree from Western University. She's also one of the co-hosts of the popular health fitness podcast and TV show, The Holistic Health Diary. She also writes a health and wellness column. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Chatelaine magazine.
You got it.
Okay. Contributes to numerous print and online media. I got that correct. That was...
You did.
And online media, including Oxygen, Sweat Equity, Mind Body Green, Inside Fitness and Strong. Sits on the advisory board of Examine.com, hosts Future Radio Health Edition on FM 94.9, and is the president of the Western chapter of the Canadian Obesity Network. It is my pleasure to introduce Gillian Mandich. Gillian, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me on today. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks. I also want to mention that we'll give this link again later, but people can visit hhdiary.com, right?
You got it.
So thank you so much. Yes, it's great to have you on, and I'll start with the departure point that we usually start with on the show, which is about, what's your favorite way to get the word out about what you do to the people that most need to hear it?
Oh, that's a good question. My strategies vary a little bit depending what the messaging is, but I feel like it's important to hook people. But I also feel like it's really important to teach people or to allow people to learn with your posts or with however you're sharing your content. I think that comes from the academic side of me. I'm a teacher, and I love research and science and learning. And so a lot of times the value in the content that I provide, I like to think, comes from the fact that you're teaching people and they're learning something. So they're better for it for having read whatever the content is that you are trying to share. So first of all, I try for the most part to share information, but to do it in a fun and accessible way, because that's the other thing. Is I feel like in life, for the most part, we don't have enough fun or enough playtime. So I try to because I generally will post about different health and wellness, yoga, meditation, nutrition type topics, and they can get dry and boring. So I try to find ways to make them fun and interesting so that on top of learning, people are having like a positive feeling when they kind of read the stuff. So that's generally the approach. I also like hashtags.
You also like hashtags?
Yeah.
They are very powerful.
You know what? I like them, and I also like them for how you can use them to be cheeky or to have fun. Like sometimes I'll hashtag like a big long sentence just as like a joke to be funny. Like I know that no one's going to go searching that hashtag, but it's kind of funny. So sometimes I'll use them just in a different way like that and kind of get creative with what you hashtag. But I like hashtags.
I love what you're saying too about the piece about fun, because especially with something like health and nutrition, people, I would imagine like in order to engage people, it's not like people can go Google information all day long if they want,
exactly,
right? If they wanted to,
exactly. But how do you take that and make it something that people feel is relevant enough to actually, maybe do something with that content, or to incorporate something into their life, or to be open to learning more about something? You've got to kind of catch them on a level. And I think a lot of times when you have fun, you associate something with a positive reaction. So when you can allow your content to have the person who's reading it or reading the tweet or the Facebook post or whatever it is to have fun with it, it kind of opens the door to a pathway where they might want to venture down and learn a little bit more.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm just curious about you. I know that you co-host a podcast, a health fitness podcast, the Holistic Health Diary. I'm curious what got you started in podcasting as a content strategy.
Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm obsessed with podcasts. I've listened to them all the time. I think that podcasts are such a powerful medium to communicate and to have that freedom of expression that you can post whatever it is that you want. So I love podcasts and I'm drawn to it for that reason. I also love the podcasting community because as a whole, I feel like people that podcast, no one's in it for the money, right? You don't make a lot of money podcasting. So people are doing it for the love of it, for the passion of sharing information, whatever that content topic area might be.
Right.
So people with good hearts, for the most part, are in it and trying just to share and to learn and to educate and to build communities and to spread awareness or knowledge or just to have conversations. So I love that idea of podcasting. And I love it. It's kind of on demand, right? Like you can listen to it whenever you want. It's not like a radio show where you have to tune in a certain time. Like I can listen to it walking my dog, driving my car, wherever I want. The possibilities are endless. So I listened to them all the time, and a friend of mine, she did too. And one day we just kind of thought, you know what? We used to just kind of sit around. We're both kind of like health geeky type people. And we thought we should record these conversations because they're interesting and people would learn from them. So that's kind of how it all started. It was just like a fun side project to just kind of share some of the stuff that we're really passionate about.
I really, I agree with you a lot about how a lot of people who start podcasts are very passionate about getting their message out. And then, it's just one of those ways. It's a very easy way to take in content too, right? Like you can't read a blog while you're driving. You can't watch a video while you're working out. Well, you can watch a video when you're working out, but you can't like watch a video when you're like running in the street or something, but you can listen to a podcast just about anywhere.
Absolutely. And you can listen to whatever it is you want to hear about. If you want to listen to one about sports or you want to listen to one about health or anything, like there's just such a variety of podcasts that there's really something for everybody and a variety of things for people. So I think that's really a cool way to learn.
Well, let me ask you this then. So, obviously, you've built up your own practice, and I'm curious, what do you see as the biggest mistakes that, let's say, even within the health and holistic world that you see people make when they try to get out there and share content?
I think that, first of all, one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone makes a post and at once they'll share it to their Instagram, their Facebook, their Twitter, everything all in one. And you can see that the links are from them, and then, their Twitter, their thing is cut off and you can't read it and stuff like that. I really feel like there's a different audience with a different purpose that goes to Twitter, then that goes to Instagram, then that goes to Facebook, that would go to your blog. So instead of just doing one mass sort of blast to everything, try to take that 5 minutes to just tweak the message a little bit for your audience. And to me, that's like one of those things that it's like a pet peeve of mine.
Oh, it's a pet peeve of mine too.
A link to Facebook. Yeah,
I cannot take it when someone, you're on Facebook and someone clearly has just used a tweet, as a Facebook post.
Yeah.
Now, that tells me
that makes me crazy.
Yeah, and what it tells me is that there's no one behind it. It was automated, so you didn't really post it, so you're not really there.
The other thing I do in my mind when I'm writing a post or something, I think of one person. So, whether that be a podcast listener that I know or a friend of mine or my sister or my mom, I think of someone that I know would really enjoy the content of that post. And when I write that post, I write it to them. So it's like not so that's who's in my head when I'm writing it. So I'm really kind of aware of that. So the way I speak is like how I would speak to this person that I like. And that I really want to help. And so for some reason in my languaging, it comes out that way. Like if you're talking to your mom or to your sister or a good friend and you're trying to tell them something, you're really passionate about it because you want them to listen and to get the message. So when you think of that person, it allows you to choose words that, you're really excited about, that you are really able to communicate something in probably a lot clearer way than if you're just writing like a broad, generic comment. So for some reason, that's what I do, and it works for me, as I picture that person. The other thing is I think about the time of day. I'm really a fan of like making either like a post that's a little bit cheeky or funny or interesting or engaging. So something that isn't just like a statement of fact. Like, my new podcast is up, here's the link on iTunes, boom. Like, to me, I would never write that because it's not that exciting. It's not that interesting. It doesn't stand out in the crowd. And in a place where we are constantly bombarded with a million posts through all different, social media applications and stuff, there's got to be something that makes you stand out a little bit. So whether it be a picture, I'm a huge fan of posting pictures with stuff because I feel like pictures can speak way more than words ever can. And when I post a picture, if I post it on Facebook, I'll tag like as many people as I know that are in the picture or that things like that. I tag a lot of people. To me, that's been like, if I watch on our Facebook page, you can, in like the administration section, you can watch how many people view it and what time of day and that kind of stuff. And I've noticed that certain times of day, we have more engagement on our page. So I'll try to post at that time. And I noticed that if I tag like myself and my podcast partner in our personal Facebook, in addition to our podcast Facebook, our reach expands by like thousands. So it's kind of one of those things that I tweak it a little bit, tag people when I need to, put links in, or if I'm talking about something on a podcast, I'll actually put like the link to that Facebook page, like tag the word in it,
That's a great, those are some great ninja tips there.
Right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things, tagging, especially like in the text, like if you're writing and you're tagging whatever it is, to actually just tag them and stuff, it takes 2 seconds. It's exactly in the text. Nothing actually changes. It's just except that you can click on that link if you wanted. But when you do that, I've noticed for our page, the exposure and the reach really expands, especially in a place like Facebook where they're really limiting who's seeing your stuff in your news feed. That kind of stuff gives you a little bit of an extra boost.
Yeah, without having to pay to boost your feed, right? Facebook now they've monetized. They're getting down to monetizing just about everything.
I know, it's crazy.
So that's great. Thank you. Those are some great ninja tips. I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions to ask on the show, which is, what's the funniest, craziest, or most creative piece of content you've ever shared, and what the result of that was?
All right, are you ready for this?
Yes, I'm ready.
So, one of our most popular podcasts, we called it Peace, Love, and Poop. And we always close our podcast and we say peace, love, and lemons. That's like our tagline when we sign off. And so this particular podcast, we call it Peace, Love, and Poop because we did an entire podcast on digestive health. Because I'm really passionate about educating people about digestive health. But that's like a boring topic. Like, no one really wants to talk about digestion. Like,
sure.
The thing we all spend so much time talking about our food, what we put in our mouth, but then the conversation kind of stops.
Yes.
So I was like, how do I make this is a really important topic. What you eat, it's really important what happens to that food once it gets in your mouth. That's still a conversation that needs to happen. So how do we make this interesting and engaging and make it something that's catchy and people want to listen to? So have you heard of the Squatty Potty?
What is it called?
A Squatty Potty.
Okay.
So basically what the Squatty Potty is it's a stool, and you put it in your washroom, and it goes around your toilet. So it's almost like a stool with a hole in the middle. And you put your feet on it, and you elevate your feet, and it changes the hip angle, and there's a muscle that goes around your colon. And when you're normally in the washroom, the muscle is contracted. But when you elevate your foot, it changes the angle where the muscle is, and it allows it to fully relax. So it's kind of a digestive aid, per se, when you're in the washroom. So I turned it into this whole thing. I did an experiment because I'm a scientist. So I downloaded 3 different apps to track my elimination for 3 weeks. And then I did it normally, introduced the Squatty Potty, and then continued to track. So in the podcast, I talked about what I learned. And we posted pictures of the Squatty Potty, but it was kind of this thing that people started laughing like, oh, haha, it's funny they're talking about a Squatty Potty and stuff like that. But it ended up being one of our most popular podcasts because we were able to bring fun to a topic that's important to talk about.
Right.
But in a way that's kind of fun.
In a fun way.
And exactly. And it's kind of allowed people to have a conversation about things that happen in the washroom that, you know, in everyday life. Like people at the break room where, you know, like my friends would talk about it in everyday conversation, which never happened before. And then it was so funny, our local radio station one day, they were talking about the squatty potty on the radio. And I got so many text messages, Gillian, you have to call in. You have to tell them about your podcast. So I called into the radio station and we had a whole conversation about it. And then they posted on their website, squatty potty expert Gillian called in to talk about squatty potties today. But this simple little stool was able to allow people, it was like a gateway to allow people to feel comfortable enough to start talking about a topic that is somewhat taboo, but very important in terms of health. So I kind of think that strategy can be used in a lot of different things. If you think of something that's a little outside of the box, it's a little bit unconventional, but that makes sense and that's kind of entertaining and fun, but at the same time is an important conversation, it's kind of a gateway to get people more comfortable to talk about things. So yeah, so I'm very pro squatty potty.
I had not heard of the squatty potty. I'll have to check it out.
I always joke that I should like get shares in a company or something.
You really
like that
should. I know they should pay you.
All the time.
Here you are on this podcast, and people will check it out. So,
but it's great.
Get your royalty check now.
I know, right?
But I think that's a very good point, especially for people that have a topic that might not inherently if you're like you said, like things like digestive health. If you just started saying, well, let's talk about your digestive health, and here's what the research shows, people will tune out, right? They just they check out. But this is a fun way to do it. So I think that's a great. I think that's a great lesson for our listeners who maybe they have a topic that's, like you said, educational that it's not enough to just educate people. You have to engage and entertain people.
Take it that one step further. And a lot of the time it comes to, just really connecting with your creativity and embracing that idea of knowing that it's okay to think outside the box and to know that just because everybody else is talking about something or doing something doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. And starting to come up with things that are really uniquely yours, that are authentic to you, can be really powerful because it's different. And you feeling confident enough to express whatever it is that you want to say in a way that's authentic to you, I think is really important too. Because if someone hates a squatty potty, they shouldn't go around talking about the squatty potty. Maybe there's something else that would trigger them to be interesting about digestive health. But just to know that out of the box thinking and really being creative with your message can be really powerful. And having the confidence to come up with those ideas, but then to actually execute them. Even if you're feeling afraid, even if you feel like you don't know what people are going to think.
That's right.
What happens if you try, and you know what? No one likes your post. Oh, well.
I know.
Move on. You learn. But it's having the confidence and being fearless enough to just put stuff out there. I mean, half the time it's trial and error. You learn what your community, what your audience likes, what they don't like, but you don't know unless you try.
Well, speaking of liking and not liking, I'm also really curious for you what books, blogs, podcasts, however you like to take in content. I know you said you love podcasts. What content motivates and inspires you?
Okay, so my favorite podcasts are, a lot of them are health podcasts actually. So the podcast that inspired me to start our podcast is called the Rich Roll Podcast. And it's an amazing, amazing podcast. And Rich just it's a long form conversation. So they're longer podcasts. So I'll listen to them when I'm hiking or things like that. But I love his podcast. He's fabulous. He has his wife on a lot, and amazing, amazing guests. I love the Ty Lopez show. Ty reads a book a day, so he's full of all sorts of cool information. I'm a huge fan of Ben Greenfield in terms of fitness. Podcast. He's amazing in terms of anything fitness, nutrition, supplement related. He's my guy. I like the Bulletproof podcast with Fat Burning Man for kind of getting more in that geeky next level health stuff. David Wolf has a really amazing podcast that I love, and so does Tim Ferriss. And yeah, those are my top podcasts that I listen to. I don't really watch TV or movies. I don't know why. I can never sit down. So
you're a busy woman. You've got a lot going on.
Yeah. If I sit down in front of a TV screen, I fall asleep. So I don't really watch a ton of movies and stuff. I read a lot of books in the morning and stuff like that. And I love reading a lot of really inspirational books, like by people like Wayne Dyer. I love Wayne Dyer. The Power of Intention is my book. Like if I have to look back and think of a book that really shifted my thinking and kind of started me on the path that I am today, it was that, The Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer. I love a lot of autobiographies too. I love reading about other really successful people in a variety of different settings and industries. So I just read like Michael Jordan, The Life. It's a biography of Michael Jordan, or Walter Isaacson's Steve Jobs book, all sorts of different books like that. I'm also a yogi, so I love reading a lot of like the Bhagavad Gita and sutras and stuff like that. So I'm kind of all over the place, but
I was going to say, you take in a lot of content. That is awesome.
I do. I'm really thirsty for it, I guess you could say. The other thing I do is when I listen to podcasts or read different books and stuff, I always try to relate it back to how it's relevant in my life. So if I listen to a podcast that I really like, instead of just saying, okay, I really like this podcast, I think, well, what was it about this podcast that I liked? Was it the questions that were asked? Was it how the dialogue was? What was it? Because I try to use them as opportunities to improve my life as well and improve my podcast. So if I love the conversational style of a podcast, I think, okay, like how can I bring more of that into my podcast? Or, so it's almost like taking a next step, really applying what you're learning, not just soaking it all up, but what actions do you take from it? That I think is the key part, is not just feeling like and podcasts can be overwhelming. If you go on iTunes, right? Like there's so many podcasts, and every podcast has so many episodes, and you don't know what to do. So it's really not feeling that overwhelming feeling. Like, or sometimes I'll find a new podcast, and there'll be like 50, and I'll be like, I listen to all of them because I love the first podcast that I heard. But knowing that, you'll kind of pick and choose, but take some good, little tips and steps and stuff from the podcast is also really beneficial.
Yes. Actually, you'll see that's kind of how I leave people. That's sort of the my end of this podcast is that message. Gillian Mandich, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your words of wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been so fun, and thank you all for tuning in and for listening.
Thank you. And again, I want to remind people that they can learn more about you at hhdiary.com. And as Gillian was saying, remember, none of what you have heard here is going to make one difference in your life unless you get out there and take action. So go out there and make it happen. Till next time, this is Doug Foresta at the Coachzing Show.
Thank you for listening to the Coachzing Show. Subscribe to us via iTunes, and please leave us a review. It helps us grow our awesome tribe. This show is brought to you by Coachzing.com's Speak to Publish book system. If your book is stuck in your head, we can help you get it out in just a dozen hours of your time. Go to Coachzing.com for more information. Have you joined the Coach Zingers community yet? You'll get exclusive access to private mastermind calls where you can get instant marketing help from industry experts. Plus, we'll help you forge deals and partnerships with other like-minded professionals. Go to Coachzing.com/community to join now.